My twin sister attempted suicide and was hospitalized. Her tormentors followed her to the hospital, mocking her for bringing it upon herself. The next morning, I walked into school wearing her face. They didn't know yet who I really was. That made them excited. It made me even more so, because I was born with something dark in me. Lily was the only one who could keep it under control. This was her second attempt, and this time, our parents didn't just cry, they called the police. But even under the glare of uniformed officers, the ringleader stayed smug. How do you know I bullied her? Maybe she bullied me, she said with a shrug, her voice dripping with false innocence. That's right, my daughter is the sweetest girl. She wouldn't hurt a fly, her mother added quickly, almost proud of her own performance. I watched them both from the security monitor in the station's hallway. My sister, the same girl who had greeted me with a bright smile just hours earlier, now lay pale and trembling in her hospital bed. Zara, the ringleader, smirked and said, "If she acts like a brat, I'll treat her like one." "What are you going to do? Put me in prison? Go ahead." Then she pulled a mocking face, like she was daring anyone to challenge her. Her mother glanced at mine with thinly veiled contempt. My mom didn't flinch. She only laughed, a sound I recognized as the warning sign that she was furious. Beside Zara stood Mia, her little shadow, who finally spoke up. "Cutting your wrists? That's nothing. If she really wanted to die, she should have jumped from the 18th floor. That way, she'd be splattered for sure. She probably just wants money from us, right, Zara?" "Humph. Ugly people always make trouble," Zara said, smirking. Because there wasn't enough solid evidence, and because they were minors, the case ended with a forced, half-hearted apology. When we got home, our family's cherished princess lay silent in her room. Bruises of every size dotted her skin. My parents and I saw things we had somehow missed before. After a long silence, I said, "Let me take her place at school." My parents didn't ask questions. They knew. I stepped into the bathroom. In the mirror, her face looked back at me. My face, too. We were identical, enough to fool anyone. Lily adored pink, her bag, her notebooks. Even her blankets were pastel. I preferred black. Mom would joke, "If I hadn't given birth to you both, I'd think one of you was switched at the hospital." She wasn't entirely wrong. Lily was soft, gentle, and good in a way the rest of us weren't. I had been called a problem child since I could talk. Only Lily played with me, and to protect others, I was kept out of school most of my life. I didn't mind. She was all I needed. We grew up with the same understanding. Lily must be protected. Always. But 1 year of high school had turned her into this. The doctor told us to avoid upsetting her. I smoothed her hair and whispered, "Don't worry. I'll make this right." A sharp ringtone shattered the quiet. Lily's face drained of color. She clutched her ears and screamed. I picked up her phone. It was a video. Lily pinned under a running faucet, her hair plastered to her face, choking on water while laughter echoed in the background. "If you talk to him again, I'll tear up your face. Let's see how you flirt with the boys after that." A voice jeered before the clip cut off. Lily trembled, whispering through chattering teeth, They filmed worse things. Without clothes. I brushed her hair back, speaking gently. "Do you trust me?" She nodded. I stepped outside to the backyard and began digging another patch in the earth with a hoe. Soon, there would be something here worth remembering. Somewhere in the distance, I could still hear faint, bitter voices cursing. "You'll pay for this. You'll get what you deserve." I slung my sister's pastel backpack over my shoulder. From this moment on, I was no longer Emma. I was Lily. The hallway chatter faded when I stepped into the classroom. Before I could take 3 steps, a book came flying toward my face. I tilted my head and let it hit the wall behind me. "Where's Zara's breakfast, huh? You looking to get smacked?" It was Mia, her shadow. The same girl whose laughter had been the loudest in that video. Her expression made one thing clear. Hurting people was her favorite sport. I ignored her and walked to Lily's seat. The desk was a vandal's canvas. Words carved deep into the wood. Slut, freak, and worse, stared back at me. What? Still staring at those love notes. Should we add a few more? Maybe carve them right into your cheek this time? Mia leaned over me, her eyes sharp and glinting with malice. Zara would love it. Something inside me stirred, slow at first, then hot and fast, flooding every vein. I didn't stop it. I stepped forward, and my hand moved before I even thought about it. Crack. The sound of my slap rang across the room. A bright red handprint bloomed on Mia's cheek. You just hit me? Wait until Zara hears. You're dead. Her voice shot up an octave, like a string pulled too tight. Tisk. I tilted my head. Why'd you stop smiling? The bell rang, saving her from trying to strike back. She dropped into her seat, still glaring. I shoved the backpack into the desk and felt something sticky. The inside was crammed with oily food wrappers, reeking like a dumpster. The homeroom teacher, Ms. Lee, walked in and frowned. Lily, why aren't you sitting? My desk is stuffed with garbage, and someone covered my chair in glue, I said flatly. Her expression stiffened. Are you accusing Zara of doing that? I didn't answer, just held her gaze. Ms. Lee let out a short laugh. Impossible. Zara's our top student. Why would she bother with you? Mia piped up, feigning innocence. Ms. Lee, everyone knows Lily's just jealous of Zara. She's perfect in every way. Sit down, Ms. Lee snapped. If you don't want to learn, don't distract the others. Instead, I gripped the desk and flipped it over. Trash and oil-stained wrappers scattered across the floor. Gasps filled the room. Mia smirked. Maybe you're just a slob and now you're blaming me. Ms. Lee nodded. If someone's targeting you, maybe ask yourself why. It always takes two, too. I closed the space between us in a single step. My palm connected with her cheek, sharp and loud. The class went dead silent. I leaned in, my voice low. Ms. Lee, do you hear how loud one hand can clap? She froze for a heartbeat, then her face flushed crimson. Lily, how dare you lay hands on a teacher? You're finished here. I'm calling your parents. When my mother arrived, in the office, Ms. Lee unloaded her outrage. One word from me, and she hit me. I've never seen such disrespect in my career. My mother tilted her head, her voice calm but sharp. Strange. Why did she only hit you, and not the other teachers? Ever thought the problem might be you? Ms. Lee's mouth opened, then closed. She finally said, Fine, let's see the principal. We'll find out if they'd rather keep me or this troublemaker. Gladly, my mother said. In the principal's office, my mother put on her sweetest smile. Sorry to trouble you over such a small matter. My husband and I were thinking for any hardworking student from a poor family, we'll cover their tuition until graduation. The principal's eyes lit up. Truly? Of course. She glanced sideways at Ms. Lee with a look that was pure challenge. Well, in that case, kids get rowdy. It's nothing serious. Ms. Lee, you've seen far worse. And apart from being a little spirited, Lily's not a problem, right? Ms. Lee's face went pale, her jaw tight. After a long silence, she nodded, swallowing whatever she'd planned to say. I allowed myself a small laugh. This was only the beginning. I was certain Lily had begged this woman for help before, only to be ignored, or worse, handed back to her tormentors. My sweet, foolish sister. You still can't see it. Sometimes the very methods you hate are the only ones that work. Even now, even after they drove you to the edge twice, you're still protecting them. But you know as well as I do, if those people ever truly fall into my hands, mercy will not be an option. Zoe returned after 2 days away, her expression tight. Rumor had clearly reached her before she even saw me. I heard you've been making waves, she said, her tone dripping with mockery. They're saying you've turned into some kind of troublemaker, even smacked a teacher around. Without another word, she kicked my desk hard enough to make my books slide to the floor. Which hand did you use on Mia? Show me. I tilted my head lazily, lips curling into a half smile. Then, without warning, I slapped her across the cheek. Both, I said simply. Her fists clenched, joints popping. You've got some nerve, she spat, lunging toward me. We collided, grappling, her cheap tricks, hair pulling, pinching, barely slowing me down. I shoved her toward the bathroom and pressed her head under the running tap. For a moment, my mind flashed to my sister, gasping for air in a similar grip. Mia hovered at the doorway, gripping a mop, uncertain. Zoe spluttered under the water, her glare sharpening. Mia, stop standing there. Grab her. Rip her clothes if you have to. I'll make her a laughingstock online. Her rage distorted her features, but her words only made me tighten my grip. If you had the guts to face me properly, I might respect you, I said. But this? Pathetic. A sudden blow to my back sent me staggering. Mia had struck with the mop. Zoe wrenched free, tackling me, her nails raking across my cheek. She smiled when she saw the marks. Let's see how you charm anyone now, she hissed. I tasted blood, but I laughed. You're doing all this because I'm prettier than you, aren't you? Because boys actually notice me? Her expression confirmed it. You think you're irresistible? You're nothing but a show-off. Our family had always taken care of our looks, though not in ways most would understand. I couldn't help but chuckle a low, strange sound that made both girls pause. What's so funny? Zoe barked. I yanked her back by the hair, slamming her into the tiled wall, then drove my knee into her midsection. She gasped but kept cursing, swearing she'd get revenge. The class bell finally broke the moment. Zoe's uniform was wrinkled and smeared with dirt, her perfume overpowered by the sour scent of the bathroom. Mia's nose wrinkled. I turned to her with a slow smile. Don't worry. You're next. She went pale but tried to hold her ground. You'll regret this. Zoe doesn't forgive. Her words proved right. By the next day, whispers followed me everywhere. They say Lily's with some rich guy, someone murmured. She's practically advertising for men. Mia stood nearby, smirking. Why not apologize to Zoe? She might even introduce you to better men. I met her gaze coolly. Yeah, I'm already your father's favorite. My eyes slid toward Zoe. Soon, I'll be your stepmother. Zoe lunged, but I kicked her back before she could touch me. Think before you act next time, I told her. She only smiled, a thin, dangerous smile, and walked away. The following days were quiet, too quiet, which only meant she was planning something worse. After school, I stopped by the little cake shop my sister loves and bought her favorite matcha cake. Her condition had worsened lately. She spent hours shut in her room, ignoring our parents' voices at the door. One evening, worried she might harm herself, they forced the door open. She was curled in the corner, trembling. I didn't do anything. I didn't, she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. When she saw me, she stumbled forward. Sis, you believe me, right? Of course I do, I said, steadying her. She cried for a long time before she could speak again. I think I was wrong before, but I didn't think she was wrong. People bully the weak and fear the strong. Her kindness had never been an excuse for cruelty. People like Zoe needed someone like me, someone who wasn't afraid to be cruel back. Later, I walked to the far edge of the backyard. 6 tall trees stood there, their leaves a shade deeper than any others in the neighborhood. Each tree had a story. The first belonged to a boy who used to throw stones at my sister when we were kids. The second to a man who thought it was funny to lift her skirt in public. The others, well, their reasons had faded in memory, but I remembered the feeling. They had all caused harm. As I stepped closer, the branches seemed to shiver, as though sensing me. Somewhere deep within the bark, faint sounds echoed, whispers, or maybe just the wind. I knelt by the soft earth, tracing my fingers over the roots. These trees had a special connection to my family, an old tradition that kept us beautiful, healthy, and strong. And I had already prepared 2 fresh spaces in the row. One for Zoe, one for Mia. After a moment's thought, I began to mark a third. Perhaps my homeroom teacher deserved a place here, too. On Monday, Zoe made her move again. That afternoon, a humiliating video of my sister circulated through the entire school. Zoe smirked at me from across the hallway. Let everyone see her real face. In the video, my sister was cornered in the bathroom, Zoe and Mia blocking the exit. They taunted her, threatening her not to seek help. We're still minors, Zoe had said. Even the police can't touch us. At most, we'll get a lecture. But you? Everyone's seen you now. I didn't plan to involve the police anyway. That would have been too easy for them. I wanted something slower, more lasting. For people like you, I told Zoe calmly, what's coming is far worse than prison. She laughed like she'd heard the funniest joke in the world. If you've got guts, go ahead and try. Later that day, I stopped by my sister's favorite cake shop as usual, but before I could step inside, someone grabbed me. I was dragged into a quiet alley. At the far end stood Zoe and Mia, hands on their hips. Out here, there's no one to protect you, Zoe said, nodding toward 3 older boys who stepped forward. Make it hurt, she ordered, slipping them money. The first one lunged, but I knocked him to the ground with a swift kick. Another swung at me, and I felt a sharp jolt in my jaw. The metallic taste in my mouth made me smile. I fought them without hesitation, using every opening I saw. Within minutes, the 3 were doubled over, groaning. One of them shoved Zoe's money back toward me, muttering apologies. I told them to bring Zoe and Mia over. They hesitated, then obeyed. Zoe glared at them. You idiots. Useless. The largest boy's temper flared, and he snapped at her, shoving her back. The girls were quickly restrained. I stepped forward, flipping open my small folding knife and letting the light catch the blade. Zoe stiffened. "You wouldn't dare," she said. "Wanna bet?" I replied. I didn't need to harm them to make my point. I just let the blade trail lightly across the air near them, enough to make their faces pale. Mia broke first. It was Zoe. She started it. "I'll never do it again," she cried, bowing her head rapidly. But apologies mean nothing without consequences. I looked at her steadily. "Sorry, I can't accept that." When I finally let them go, they didn't look at each other once. I knew whatever loyalty they'd had was gone. Soon, photos of Zoe and Mia were quietly making their way around the school. I wasn't in the video. The place I had chosen was outside the range of any surveillance camera. No one suspected me. Even if Zoe and Mia shouted until their voices broke, no one would believe them. By now, Mia had stopped following Zoe around. She sat at her desk in silence, lost in her own thoughts. Today was the last day of school before summer break. And just as I expected, when dinner time came, there was a knock at our door. Outside stood Mia and Zoe. Zoe's eyes widened as she glanced past me, clearly surprised at the size of our home. Perhaps she'd imagined my sister came from a poor family. "Mia said you wanted to make peace?" Zoe asked. "Yeah," I replied evenly. "We're just students. Shouldn't we focus on our studies instead?" Her posture relaxed. She and Mia stepped inside, where the dining table was already set by our housekeeper. My parents stood nearby, smiling warmly. "It's good that you came," my mother said, almost too cheerfully. After dinner, Zoe wandered upstairs. She paused at my sister's door, but I guided her into my own room instead. Her eyes landed on my walk-in closet. "Are all these yours?" "Yes." "This dress is beautiful. Can I try it?" She didn't wait for permission, already picking through my clothes. Mia, however, sat still on the bed, watching quietly. Once Zoe was done parading in front of the mirror, I leaned closer. "Want to see something even more special? It's in the basement." She followed without hesitation. But when she saw what was in the basement's back room, she froze mid-step. "What is this?" she whispered. "Let's just say it's our family's secret for staying beautiful," I said. "Would you like to participate?" Zoe's face drained of color. This isn't right. What are you planning to do?" I smiled faintly. For people who plant trouble, it's only fair they help grow something better. Her voice shook. "I'll never bother you again. Please, just let me go." I tilted my head toward Mia. "Then why don't you start by helping her with the process?" Mia's eyes widened. "You promised if I brought her here, you'd let me go." Zoe turned toward her, anger replacing fear. In a flash, the two were grappling, each trying to overpower the other. My parents watched from the doorway as if enjoying a private performance. Eventually, Zoe had Mia pinned. She reached for the small tool I offered her. Nothing dangerous, just enough to press into the earth near Mia's leg. The sound of roots brushing soil filled the room. Zoe stood, breathing hard. "Can I go home now?" I smiled. Almost. But before she could take a step, my mother closed the door behind her. Mia's mouth fell open, her teeth chattering. "You said if I brought Zoe here, you'd let me go. You lied." Zoe's expression shifted in an instant. Anger flashed in her eyes. Without warning, she lunged at Mia, grabbing her by the hair. The two stumbled, pushing and shoving, each trying to gain the upper hand. I stood watching, amused by the chaos. My parents lingered in the doorway, equally entertained. Soon, Zoe had Mia pinned. Her breath was quick, her hands trembling, though not from fear. I handed her a small, slender tool from the table. She took it without hesitation. The next moments were a blur of movement and sound, a gasp, a sharp cry, and the muffled scrape of earth being pressed. The air grew heavy, carrying the faint scent of fresh soil. When the task was done, Zoe exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing. "Can I go home now?" "Of course," I said with a smile. She gathered her skirt and made for the door, but before she could reach it, my mother stepped forward and firmly blocked her path. "I didn't say you could leave," she said softly, almost kindly, which somehow made it worse. The basement air grew thick, the scent of damp earth and something older, deeper, curling around us. Zoe's eyes darted between my mother and me, her confidence unraveling like a threadbare sweater. Mia, still on the ground, clutched at the soil, her fingers trembling as she tried to push herself up. The tool Zoe had used, a small, sharp trowel, lay discarded beside her, its blade glinting faintly in the dim light. "You promised," Zoe said, her voice cracking. She took a step back, her heels scuffing against the stone floor. "You said I could go." My mother tilted her head, her smile unwavering but sharp, like a blade hidden in silk.
"Oh, Zoe."
"Promises are fragile things, aren't they? Like trust. Or reputations." She glanced at Mia, who was now sobbing quietly, her face streaked with dirt. "You both know a lot about breaking things, don't you?" I stepped forward, brushing my fingers along the edge of a wooden table where our family kept the tools of our tradition. The basement was no ordinary place. It was a sanctuary, a vault of secrets passed down through generations. The walls were lined with shelves, each holding jars of rich, dark soil, labeled with names and dates. Some were faded, others fresh. The 6 trees in the backyard had grown from this very earth, their roots fed by something far more potent than water or sunlight. "Zoe," I said, my voice soft but deliberate, "you've spent so long tearing people down. You forgot what it's like to build something. To make something last." I gestured toward the patch of earth where Mia still knelt. "This is your chance to create something beautiful." Her gaze followed my hand, and her breath hitched. The patch of soil was freshly turned, a perfect rectangle, just large enough for, well, she didn't need to know that yet. Her imagination was doing enough work, her eyes wide with the dawning realization that she was no longer in control. Mia's sobs grew louder, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "I didn't mean it. I only did what she told me. Zoe made me. Please, you have to believe me." Zoe whirled on her, her face twisting with fury. "Shut up, Mia. You're such a coward, always hiding behind me. You wanted to hurt her just as much as I did." I let them argue, their voices rising, clawing at each other like animals caught in a trap. It was almost poetic, how quickly their alliance crumbled when faced with real consequences. My parents watched, their expressions unreadable, but their eyes glinting with quiet approval. They had always known this day would come, that I would step fully into the role they'd prepared me for. The family tradition wasn't about cruelty, not really.
It was about balance.
About taking the pain others inflicted and turning it into something enduring, something that fed the earth and the soul. The trees in our backyard weren't just trees. They were monuments to justice, each one a testament to someone who had crossed us, who had hurt those we loved. Their roots ran deep, nourished by the lessons they'd never had the chance to learn in life. I picked up the trowel and handed it back to Zoe.
"Finish what you started," I said.
"The earth's waiting." Her hands shook as she took it, her knuckles white. What do you want me to do?" "Dig," I said simply. "Make it deep. Make it count." She hesitated, her eyes searching mine for a way out. There wasn't one. Not here, not now. Mia whimpered, crawling backward until her back hit the wall. The sound of her fear was sharp, piercing, but it didn't move me. It couldn't. Not after what they'd done to Lily. Zoe began to dig, her movements jerky at first, then steadier as the rhythm took hold. The earth parted easily, as if it had been waiting for her. Mia watched, frozen, her breath coming in shallow gasps. My mother stepped closer, her presence looming like a shadow. "Keep going," she said, her voice low and encouraging, as if she were coaxing a child to finish their homework. "You're doing so well." Zoe's face was slick with sweat now, her breaths ragged. "How deep does it have to be?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Deep enough to hold everything you've done," I said. "Every word, every laugh, every video you shared, every tear you made her cry." She froze, the trowel slipping from her hands. This is crazy. You're crazy. I'm not doing this anymore." She turned toward the door, but my father was already there, his broad frame blocking the exit. He didn't say a word, just stood, his silence heavier than any threat. Zoe's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, her hands clawing at the dirt. "Please," she whispered. "I'll do anything. I'll apologize. I'll leave her alone. I swear." I crouched beside her, my voice gentle but unyielding. "You had your chance to be kind, Zoe. You chose to be cruel instead. Now you get to see what cruelty grows into." Mia screamed, a raw, desperate sound that echoed off the walls. "You can't do this. You can't just. People will notice. They'll come looking for us." I tilted my head, considering her words. "Will they? You're not the first to stand here, Mia. And no one's come looking for the others." Her eyes widened, and she scrambled to her feet, lunging for the door. My father caught her easily, his hands gentle but firm as he guided her back to the patch of earth. "Sit," he said, his voice calm. "You're not done yet." The next hour passed in a strange, dreamlike haze. Zoe and Mia worked side by side, their hands trembling as they dug deeper into the soil. My parents and I watched, offering quiet instructions, ensuring the earth was prepared just right. The air grew heavier, the scent of roots and decay mingling with the sharp tang of fear. When the holes were deep enough, I knelt beside them, my fingers tracing the edge of the earth. "This is where it ends," I said softly. "But it's also where something new begins." Zoe looked up at me, her face streaked with dirt and tears. "What are you going to do to us?" she whispered. I smiled, not unkindly. "You're going to help us grow something beautiful, something that lasts." My mother stepped forward, holding a small, intricately carved box. She opened it, revealing a handful of seeds, tiny, unassuming things that carried the weight of our family's legacy. "These," she said, "are for you." Zoe's eyes widened. "Seeds? You're planting seeds?" "Not just any seeds," I said. "These are special. They'll grow strong, fed by everything you've given us today." Mia's voice was barely audible. "You're not going to kill us?" I laughed softly, the sound echoing in the quiet. "Kill you? No, Mia. That would be too easy. We don't take lives. We transform them." My father handed me a small vial of dark, shimmering liquid. I poured it carefully into the soil, watching as it sank into the earth, blending with the roots that were already beginning to stir. Zoe and Mia watched, transfixed, as the ground seemed to hum with a life of its own. "Plant the seeds," I said, handing one to each of them. They hesitated, their hands shaking, but they did as I asked, pressing the seeds into the soil with trembling fingers. As they worked, I spoke, my voice low and steady. "Every cruel word, every act of malice, every moment you made her feel small, it's all here now, in this earth. It's going to grow into something new. Something that will stand for years, long after everyone's forgotten your names." When they were done, my parents stepped forward, their hands resting on my shoulders. "You've done well," my mother said, her voice warm with pride. "Both of you." Zoe and Mia sat back, exhausted, their faces pale and drawn. The basement was silent now, save for the faint rustle of the earth settling around the newly planted seeds. "You can go," I said at last. "But you'll carry this with you. Every time you see a tree, every time you smell fresh earth, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember what you've done, and what's growing because of it." They stumbled to their feet, their movements slow and unsteady. My father opened the door, and they fled without looking back, their footsteps echoing up the stairs. When they were gone, I turned to my parents. "Will it take?" I asked. My mother smiled. "It always does." The summer passed quietly. Lily began to heal, her smiles returning in small, tentative bursts. She spent hours in the backyard, sitting beneath the shade of the 6 trees, her fingers tracing their bark as if she could hear the stories they held. She never asked about Zoe or Mia, and I never told her. Some truths are better left in the earth. By autumn, 2 new trees had begun to sprout, their leaves of vibrant green that seemed to glow in the evening light. They were small, but strong, their roots already weaving deep into the soil. I visited them often, tending to their growth, whispering to them the way I used to whisper to Lily when she was scared. The school year started again, but Zoe and Mia didn't return. Rumors swirled. Some said they'd moved away, others that they'd been sent to a different school. No one knew for sure, and no one cared enough to dig deeper. Their absence left a void, but it was a clean one, like a wound that had finally begun to heal. Ms. Lee, too, was different. She avoided my gaze in the hallways, her once sharp tongue softened by something unspoken. I never learned what my mother had said to her after that day in the principal's office, but it was enough to keep her in line. She retired at the end of the year, citing personal reasons. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I sat with Lily in the backyard, the new trees casting long shadows across the grass. She leaned against me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Do you think it's over?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. I looked at the trees, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. "It's never over," I said, "but it's enough for now." She nodded, her fingers twining with mine. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The trees spoke for me, their roots deep and unyielding, their leaves whispering of justice, of balance, of a world where cruelty was met not with mercy, but with something far more enduring. And as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, I felt the earth beneath us hum with life, with purpose, with the promise of new growth yet to come.